Hi, and welcome or welcome back to my channel. Today we're doing a normal monthly podcast, so let's get into what I've been knitting on, what I've finished, and anything I've bought. So let's kick it off. Okay, hello, welcome back or welcome to my channel if you're new here. My name's Sarah and I'm doing a monthly podcast today, but I post content about knitting every week. So if you're new here, welcome. And as I said, today is a monthly podcast. It's podcast number 13th, which feels very fitting for the month of October to have my 13th podcast. So I'm trying to get a little spooky. So I'm going to go through the normal format today. I've got finished objects. I've got whips, multiple whips, unlike me. I've got more acquisitions than I want to talk about. And then I also always share some things that have been inspiring me this month, progress on my 2024 knitting intentions, and then any recommendations. So let's get on into it. To start off with finished objects, I've got 2 finished objects this month, one of which I don't have with me. So we'll start off with the one I do have with me. These I actually finished earlier this week, so they were my most recent finished object, but they're in front of me. So here we go. These are the socks that I finished for the month of September. They are the Just Peachy Pumpkin Socks by Stone Knits, and obviously I made the pumpkin version, and I used, gosh, I've had this yarn in my stash for years at this point, but it was from Gem State Yarns, who dyes yarn, and on Etsy, like a year and a half ago, but when I was really getting into more hand-dyed yarn, she sells mystery months. I don't know if she still does, but in the past she was selling these like mystery packs every month. You could get like a sock set or something, and so I'd bought one from her, and it was 70 grams of this kind of white speckled yarn. So it's white with little speckles of gray and some yellow, and I think it was supposed to be inspired by a bird's nest, but that's the main color. And then for the contrast colors, I used a little bit. This green is from Apothecary Fiber Co., who's now closed down, but I'm forgetting the colorway name, but a little bit of green I had from her. And then this blue and this orange are both from a sock set by Treehouse Knits. The sock set was called Keepsake, and these were the 2 contrast colors provided in it. And it makes such a fun little autumnal sock. These are really well fitting for a pair of colorwork socks, so I'm really happy about that. I think I finally nailed colorwork tension, which is awesome. And I did this one with a orange toe and this one with a blue toe, and then the pumpkins also alternate. So this sock starts off with blue, this one starts off with orange, and yeah, I think they're really fun and funky and cute, and they're still subtle with the white, but they're nice autumnal fun pair of socks. So definitely, if I go to a pumpkin patch this year, I'm gonna wear these. I wore them every year. Noah and I go, that's my boyfriend, go leaf peeping up in the mountains to just go look at the aspens changing color and all that. And so I wore these for that, which was lovely. And yeah, I'm really happy with these. They took me a week, so pretty good, normal sock knitting timeline, and they were really fun to work on. So those are the Just Peachy Pumpkin Socks. And my other finished object I don't have with me because it was a gift from my mom, but it was another sample knit of this sweater, which I designed. So if you've been here for a while, you've probably seen the sweater a lot. I designed it back in June and did my first sample knit then, and decided to make another sample, which I actually filmed a full video about. So last week my video was all about knitting this second sample in a week for my mom. And so I knit that, and it's beautiful. It has some pictures. She really loves it. It fits well. And yeah, it was the second sample of this sweater design, which I really wanted to do before I did a call for testers or release this design. And so I'm happy to announce that I've actually put out that call for testers now, and it is open to apply. So I'll have the link in the bio here. It's also on my Instagram. I've already posted about it there, and there's more information on Instagram and in the it's a Google form link in my description. So I'll also probably make a community post. I'm filming this on Saturday, so you'll probably see the community post Saturday, and then this video will come out Sunday. So you'll hopefully hear about it a lot. If you are interested in test knitting, I'd really greatly appreciate you applying. I'm so grateful for anyone that wants to knit something that I designed. That's incredible and really cool. And the name of the sweater is the Mountains and Seas sweater. So I designed this sweater when I was knitting it. I was in Tanzania, Dar es Salaam, and then Zanzibar as well, which is right on the Indian Ocean. So I was spending a lot of time looking at the ocean or on the beach while I was knitting and thinking about the sweater. And then I continued designing it as well when I went on a cruise through the Inside Passage in Alaska. And I was quite literally surrounded by the mountains and the seas because I was on the ocean and then surrounded by these cliffs and seeing mountains in the background. So very inspired by kind of what was around me. But if you've ever read Sarah J. Maas, her Throne of Glass series, the book Tower of Dawn, they talk, one of the sections in the book is named Mountains and Seas, and I was actually coincidentally reading that at the same time I was designing this sweater, and I was already thinking like, oh, I want something about mountains and seas and like reminiscent of where I am, and kind of I think this is also a really great sweater to wear like in a mountain cabin and, you know, having your coffee in the morning, looking out at the mountains. It's cozy and warm. It's DK weight, so it's not too thick where, you know, I'd wear this just as a single layer like in the summer in a cool morning, but it's not going to make me overheat. And it has the V-neck to allow for some air circulation, but it's still nice and cozy with the DK weight and a double folded neckline. All of that makes it a little bit cozier as well. So to me, it's the perfect thing to kind of sit out in the sun in the mountains, watching clouds go by, or, you know, on a cruise, on a sailboat, or just on a beach near the ocean. So Mountains and Sea sweater, but kind of it felt like the perfect name because the inspiration came from a lot of different areas. You know, I was reading this book where they're talking about the mountains and seas as a metaphor for all that this character Irene has done to get where she is. She's crossing mountains and seas is kind of what is talked about in the book. And then I love that book. It was my favorite in the series, which is a really controversial take. If you've ever read Throne of Glass, everyone hates that book, but it was my favorite. And I enjoyed reading it, enjoyed getting that inspiration, enjoyed knitting this by the sea, looking at mountains, and have enjoyed twice now taking it up to the mountains. So I hope that if you're interested in knitting it yourself, you can apply as well. And I'm really glad to have knit it for my mom. So I knit the size extra small for her because she wanted less positive ease. This design is made to be pretty oversized. So I have 12 inches of positive ease, or about 30 centimeters actually. But in her version, she has the same bust circumference actually. So 37-inch bust for both of us, and she wanted less ease. So I made her the extra small to give her 4 inches of positive ease. And yeah, it's a lot more tight fitting on her, looks nice as well. It's, you know, a different sweater, but I liked the way both look on me, both look great on her. And I knit it out of Salty Blonde Fine Fibers in her base Hometown, which is an alpaca silk merino base. And it's a fingering weight, so I did that and then held it with the Lana Grossa Seta Suri in color number 47 to make just a really nice purpley fun color. And another fun thing, I know I've talked of the colorway. Another fun thing is the colorway from the Salty Blonde Fibers yarn was called Enchanted, which is based off of a trailhead in Boulder, Colorado, where I grew up, and it's inspired by the Flatirons, which is a mountain feature in Colorado and in Boulder specifically. And so the yarn I used was also mountain inspired. So it was like another addition of like, yes, mountains, it has to have something to do with mountains. So really fun. I'm really excited to see my mom wear that sweater more, and it was really fun to go take pictures with my mom and see her to be really excited about it. So if you want to learn more about the sweater, there's a whole video you could watch from last week. There's also the testing link that you can learn a little bit about, and then it'll be like a 10-week testing period. And then so I'll probably release the design after Christmas in the new year, which it's kind of crazy to already be thinking about 2025. But I guess that's what you have to do when you're designing and thinking about these timelines. So I hope to see some of you in this testing group, and then hope to see some of you in January when the pattern comes out. So that's all there. those are my finished objects for this month. It was kind of, I don't know, in a lot of ways I feel like my wheels have just been spinning because I've come off of a very busy proposal. So for the first half of September, I was really busy with work. And then the second half, I've kind of been slowing down. I was able to actually take some time off and relax a little bit. And that's why I could knit a sweater in a week. But yeah, it's been kind of a weird headspace of going from super, super busy to not super slow, but calming back down, getting back to a normal level of productivity. And I think my whips and my finished objects kind of reflect this month where I have these 2 finished objects, but then I have 3 whips right now. And I wish I could focus on some of them a little bit more, but that's kind of where my head is. So we'll start out with the longest standing whips, which actually is this one. So I have 3 whips, as I said. The first one, I think, was this was a whip in my last podcast too. So I've been working on it for like a month now. And I haven't looked at this in a while. Oh my gosh. I'm really close on it. It's really frustrating because I'm like not that far from finishing it, but I just can't right now. This is the Moonset Tee by Seta. And so it's a fingering weight drop shoulder t-shirt. And yeah, I started it in September, got a lot of good work on it, and then set it down to knit the sweater for my mom, and just haven't picked it back up yet because I felt like I had more urgent whips and I didn't want to. So we'll see when I work on this. I feel like I'm definitely going to finish it. I'm not going to abandon it. I'm so close actually, but I just was feeling the need to set it down and focus on some more seasonal knits at this point, and that's okay. But I'm knitting this out of the Summer Base by Salty Blonde Fine Fibers. This is a very Salty Blonde heavy episode. She's one of my favorite dyers. And so the Summer Blend, which has alpaca, linen, and silk, and I'm knitting it in the colorway Mojito. And yeah, it's beautiful. I love this sweater. Or this t-shirt, and I will have it soon. It feels super nice. The drape's wonderful. And I think I need like 4 inches left. So it's really not far to go, but I have more pressing things on my mind, and that's okay. That is okay. I'm going to pick this up back again. And maybe my next episode it'll be finished, or it won't. Either way is fine because we're kind of going into it. I mean, honestly, it's still like in the mid 80s today, so I could very easily wear this for probably a while longer, but my heart is with fall. My heart says it is fall out, and so finishing a t-shirt just doesn't really take priority right now, which is fine. So that's my first whip. My second whip is kind of out of my normal area, and that's because it's a crochet whip. So I only have 2 squares right now, but I'm making this purse, and this is actually a kit. So I've talked about Hooks and Needles before. They're not sponsoring this. They did send me this box and sponsored me to talk about it on Instagram, so I posted an Instagram reel with them, but I'm not being paid to say anything about them right now. But transparency, I did receive this yarn for free and the pattern for free, and they've paid me to talk about them elsewhere. But right now, I'm just saying this is one of my whips. I do really want to finish this bag, and these granny squares are really fun to make. So they're a hexagon shape, and they kind of are like a sunburst one. I'm not really sure. And they're really fun to make. I just simply haven't worked on any more because I was trying to knit a sweater in a week, and now I have some sample knits, and so I'm definitely going to pick it back up again. I know that people say crochet is really fast, and I think that I would find that if I crocheted more, but for now I'm finding crochet to take a really long time for me, and so both of these have took an hour to 2 hours each, so I'd probably get faster. I also felt like I couldn't eat or drink or move or get up while I was working on these because I needed to keep the most focus possible. And so I think that would come easier as I'd continue to work on them, but they definitely right now take a lot of focus, which is why I have 2 out of the 9 that I need. But it is really fun. It's fun to learn something new and try it, and I do want to finish it. So that's one of my whips. Super fun. And then my last whip is a secret. It's a sample knit for Salty Blonde, and it's a really exciting one. I think I mentioned before that I'm knitting her Advent sample this year. So Salty Blonde has a Advent, a lot of yarn dyers do, with 24 mini skeins and then 1 big skein and a lot of little extra things that she, I think, was selling back in May or April, or May, yeah, like April, May, and I'm knitting the sample for it. So throughout the month of December, you'll be able to see little bits of what I did along with the colors that come out. And so it's a shawl, it's a fade shawl, and it's so much fun. So her inspiration was Hallmark movies, or like Christmas Hallmark. And it's been so fun to see the colorways she's come up with and see how they all work together. And so I'm really enjoying it. And I really wish I could show you because it's so exciting right now. I've showed my mom, I've showed a bunch of my friends, just being like, look at this, like, who don't care about knitting and don't know anything about, they're not spoiled the surprise, but it's a beautiful Advent. And so if you ordered one, I'm really excited for you. I'm really enjoying working with it. And so yeah, it's been fun, but can't show you because it's a secret, and it'll be a surprise through January when you can see the end of it. So I'll definitely post the full completed object in January, but for now I'm just knitting away on it, and it's really fun. And so yeah, those are my whips and finished objects. Getting into acquisitions, I do have more than normal acquisitions. Just, I don't know why. I was feeling like acquiring things. I was talking to my friend about how both of us spend a lot more money once fall rolls around because we get excited about autumn. And so that was definitely the case here. And so I'll just talk you through some of my acquisitions. First is this yarn, which I've already caked up, and this is by Tippy Tree Yarns. The color was Allergic to Color, and so it's just a white with speckles of black. And Tippy Tree Yarns is another Colorado local dyer, so I'm always excited when I get to try a new Colorado dyer. And it's a really nice skein. I clearly caked it already because I'm planning on using it very soon, but it's a sock yarn. I forget the exact blend, but it's like a standard, I think 75-25. It seems like a 3 or 4 ply. I threw away the tag because I don't know why. I was not being a good podcaster. So I'm planning on using this for a pair of colorwork socks. I'm going to have a bunch of different colors going on, and then this is the background. So I just wanted a neutral yarn, and I was able to actually walk to my local yarn store now. So it was round trip, like 3.5 miles to walk there and back to this yarn store. So it's not like the easiest walk, but it's like a 30 to 45 minute walk there. I think it's like 30 minutes there and then 30 minutes back to get yarn. So that was really exciting, and I really enjoyed doing that walk, and I'm excited to use this soon. So first acquisition. Second thing is I ordered from Knit Picks over Labor Day because they were having a sale, and I need yarn for the blanket I'm planning on working on, which is in my knitting plans for autumn or for fall. And so I'm planning on making the triangulum blanket with like a quilt motif, and so I needed a neutral main color. And so I ordered to start the Hawthorne DK weight base from Knit Picks. It's an undyed yarn, and it is 80% superwash Highland wool and 20% polyamide, and I got 3 of them, and they were really cheap. They were on sale too, and so I think, I don't know the exact price, but I think each one of these was $8, and so it was really cheap to get 3 of them for a whole blanket, and it feels nice. It's a Highland wool. It's been superwash treated, so it's not quite as toothy as a normal Highland, but it's still really nice. And the color of the undyed, I wish it was a little less yellow, but I think it's gonna work, and it's fine. So yeah, I got those from Knit Picks. I also, while I was shopping on Knit Picks, they get me every time because everything seems really cheap and then you add it all to your cart and you're like, oh. But I also got a new set of interchangeable needles because these are from US zeros to US 4. And so I love interchangeable knitting needles. I've structured a lot of how I knit and how I make things using interchangeables. I use the cord stoppers a ton. And so my current set, which is the Clover Takumis, only go to a US 3. And so for anything that uses a 2 to a 0 to a 2.5, that's not socks, I get really frustrated. And so the Moonset Tee is a 2.5 needle. And so I just decided, you know what? I'm going to order these. I think they were like $60 before everything was on sale. And I think I ended up paying like $50 for them. So not horrible for a set. They're nice metal set, lots of cords attached and stoppers included. So ordered these and they have made my making slightly better already with the Moonset Tee. So I think it's worth it. Anything that makes my making better is great in my book. I also from Knit Picks got this, which you put ball of yarn on. I don't really want to shove it through right now. And then you knit from the ball of yarn from the outside and this rotates. I got this because I want to not use center pull as much. Most of the time, when I'm knitting from a yarn cake, will do a center pull ball, and that means that it's slowly collapsing in on itself, and if I don't use the full skein while I'm doing that, it gets really annoying to store this kind of collapsed skein of yarn unless I rewind it. So I have decided that I should prioritize doing exterior pull, so pull from the outside of the yarn instead of the inside, so that I have a nice ball of yarn at the end of my knitting experience instead of just a clump of yarn that I either have to re-spin or be very, very careful with and just doesn't look very nice. So trying to exterior pull more, and it was less than $10 from Knit Picks, and helps to just, keep your yarn moving and rotating, because the thing about a center pulling it from the outside is your yarn rolls because you're moving it. So got this to help with that, and it's useful. It's nice to just have something. It was cheap. And so yeah, I got that. I also got this sock set from Salty Blonde Fine Fibers. So I ordered the yarn for my mom's sweater, and then I ordered the sock set that I did the giveaway with, and I also ordered myself a sock set. So I got the colors Rocky Mountain High and Fern for my little sock set, and I'm not sure what I'm going to make with it yet, but this blue and with the little bits of green and a Colorado inspired yarn had my heart, and so I needed one of them, and so I got this. So I love that. And finally, I didn't know where to put this. It's like I shared the original part of this as an acquisition a while ago, and what I've actually done is I didn't buy this skein of yarn, I dyed it. So I had this jar, I think in my last podcast or the podcast before, I showed that I'd gotten this jar of yarn that came with dye to do a low immersion dye. And so this was a skein of 100% cotton undyed yarn that then included some purple dye and soda ash and a jar to dye the yarn in. And so I did that with my friend, and I have this nice purple skein of cotton yarn that is horribly skeined up. I apparently I'm really not good at making skeins of yarn, but I dyed it. It was really fun and easy to dye it, and I think I'm going to actually try to do a crochet project with this, maybe like a crochet bucket hat. I don't know, but yeah, skein, of DK weight yarn that I've dyed, and I'm excited about it and wanted to show you the finished object of that. So those, oh, one more acquisition. I also got this, which is a electric yarn winder, because I got really fed up with doing all the hand winding when I am doing a lot of projects with hand-dyed yarn right now. And my hand winder, I do like it. It's really pretty and is more ergonomic. The fact that I have this wood hand winder where the handle, instead of kind of being on the side and having to crank up and down, you can crank like this. It is more ergonomic, but it sometimes will just skip, and like the barrel's really slippery, and so I think it makes the yarn sometimes skip and not get on the ball, and then I end up with all this yarn kind of at the bottom of my cake, and it just promotes tangles when I'm knitting from my yarn. And I also skein up a lot of yarn because I'm knitting a lot, and I'm doing 3 samples with yarn, hand-dyed yarn, which all comes, you know, in skein form. So I'm doing 3 samples, all of which involve at least 6 colors each. A lot of them involve way more. You know, I'm doing a 24 skein sample right now, which I have to hand wind 24 skeins. I'm doing another one that's probably, I think, 7 skeins, and another with like 5 or 6. And so I decided to spend $50 on an electric winder to just help me not have to wind up so many skeins by hand and get super frustrated and frustrate my shoulder, because I think I mentioned before, I'm hypermobile and have unsure if I have fibromyalgia as well, but I'm hypermobile and I experience chronic pain. And so doing the repetitive motion of winding, it hurts my shoulder over time. Like, I'm definitely, you know, not sitting right and winding wrong. Like, even if it's really well designed ergonomically, I don't know, anything I can do to kind of make my life a little easier and not frustrate my shoulder or frustrate my arm is great. And so I got an e-winder. So it's honestly already been great. This skein was electrically wound, so part of why I wound this one up was to test the electric winder. And you can see it looks a little funky, but it's gonna knit fine. And so I'm really happy with this purchase, even if I felt a little dumb spending $50 on something that I already owned, but this is the automatic version, so it's fine though. But yeah, those are my acquisitions for this month. I have a lot of inspiration for this month. I was actually really good about saving inspirations for myself instead of just not doing that. And so I have 3 this month to share with you. And so if you're new here, every podcast I like to share some things that I saw on Instagram or elsewhere in the knitting community online, and just shout out like, hey, this sweater is beautiful, this project, this design, this yarn, whatever it is. So I have 3 inspirations. The first one, and I'm looking down at my computer to make sure I get the details right. The first one is this Paris Pearl sweater. There's actually a test call out for it right now. It's by Pearl by Ray on Instagram, and it's such a beautiful textured patterned design. So it uses fingering weight, and it has this kind of knit and purl texture, I believe, to make these different looks in it. And I think it's really nice. It's nice. It's pretty subtle for, you know, a texture design or a pattern design, but still has just cool. It kind of reminds me of the Storm Sweater by Petite Knit, and it's just cool. So it's also available to test right now. So I'll have, you know, the pictures of it, the Instagram linked in my bio or in my description. And so you can follow that and find the testing link as well if you are interested in testing it. It's a beautiful sweater. So that was really inspiring. It's also really nice to see small designers always. So appreciate that. The next thing I was inspired by that I gasped when I saw are these yarn bowls by Etnicelle Ceramique. She's in Montreal, and so it's in French. She's amazing. I think that Marley Knits has shouted her out before, but she makes these amazing yarn bowls and beautiful, beautiful mugs too, with quilt motifs on them. And the yarn bowls I love because I do have one yarn bowl from Cotta Ceramics, which is beautiful. I love it. It's a cute little pink cow, but the yarn goes through a little hole in the front, and so you're kind of locked in. Once you start knitting from it, you're kind of locked into using that yarn bowl until you either finish your project or finish that skein cake of yarn, because you can't, it's through a little hole. So the yarn's on one side, your project's on the other, it's not coming out of the hole. And so it's really nice for small projects. Swatching, I like to use it a lot, but for anything larger, it's not that functional because I don't want to be tied to this ceramic, fragile, kind of heavy bowl that I have to bring everywhere with me when I'm working on something. But these ones have a slit down the side and a place for the yarn so that you can bring your yarn in and out, but it still holds it, and just, again, helps with when you're doing not a center pull ball. And so the ball can just kind of tumble around in there and isn't going to roll away from you. So very beautiful. I also just, it's definitely a trend. I'm not the only one, but I love quilt motifs right now. And so excited to always see more quilt motifs. So this one was beautiful, and she has some available right now. For me, getting one from Canada, the shipping was really expensive. So I actually have a really good friend who does ceramics and pottery, and so sent her some of these as inspiration for a potential Christmas gift. So we'll see if that ever happens, but it's beautiful. So very inspired by that. And my last inspiration is just marling. So the Wandering Flock, who is a great yarn dyer, I've knit a little bit with her yarn before. She has been posting a lot about marled projects lately and posting a lot of swatches of marled projects, and it's just really inspiring me. Like these more intense marls where, the one I'm having here will probably be this maroon or like very, very deep purple with a light purple. And I like the two ends of, it's kind of the same tone, but there's one that's a very, very light hue and one a very dark hue, and then marling those together, just, I love it right now. Like a very intense marl is just really calling my name. And it's definitely in part to the Wandering Flock. So thank you for that to her. And yeah, I just love a marl. I love her yarn too. I mean, she has great yarn, but specifically now really craving to do a marl for myself. So those are my inspirations for the month. And then I also always, at the beginning of the year, I set myself 10 intentions for my knitting in 2024. And so I like to go through those, just kind of keep myself accountable, share how I'm doing on them. So I'm going to do that now. So the first one about exploring new fibers. Nothing to report, man. I've worked with mostly superwash, merino, or linen silk this month, and that's okay. My next one, bringing my stash down. I don't think I need to comment on that. I clearly did the opposite. Knitting from patterns I already own. I was good at this month. I not only knit from patterns that I'd already owned, but I also knit without a pattern for my own design. So that is great. Deepening my yarn knowledge. I dyed this yarn. So I would say yes to that. I was kind of saying at the beginning of the year, spinning and dyeing yarn are the two ways that I want to experience that. And so I did one of them this month. Expanding my knitting knowledge. I designed my first pattern and have written now a full knitting pattern, graded it, and starting that test knit. So I would say that is quite a skill extender there. So really proud of that. And then the project I'm working on for Salty Blonde right now, which I cannot show you, has a fade in it. And it's actually the first time I'm doing fade, like a fade between different colors. And so that's been really enjoyable to also kind of expand that knowledge as well. And making more socks. I made one pair. So I'm trying to make a pair of socks a month. I'm a month behind, so I made one pair, technically finished it in October, but I started it in September. So these are my September socks, but I still have 2 more pairs of socks to go before I'm caught up. So I need to make a pair of socks for August technically, and then a pair of socks in October. So hopefully I can catch up this month. I don't really think I'm going to be able to. We'll see. And if I make 11 and 12, doesn't sound right as quite as nice, but it's still a lot of socks. So trying. Wearing my knits more often. I did really good on this month. I wore this quite a bit. I wore out last night to go leaf peeping. I wore these socks and I wore my Eva cardigan. I'm getting really excited about fall starting, and so excited to pull out more of my sweaters. Like, it's a little cooler. And so I've worn my Athens cardigan a few times. I've worn even my blouse number 1 light a few times. So yeah, pulling stuff out and wearing it more. So feel good about that. And then knitting less. I don't want to comment on that one. It's definitely been knitting a lot, which is nice, but I gotta be careful about, having other things going on. But I feel like my life's really full right now. I've been working out more. I joined a new Pilates / yoga / fitness studio and have been going to a lot of fitness classes and enjoying that, seeing friends. So I'm knitting a lot, but I am prioritizing other things as well. So, I can't say knit less, but I think that I've found a healthy balance for myself with knitting and other life parts. Fewer deadlines. I don't want to comment because I have so many deadlines. So many deadlines right now. I have 3 sample knits that are due between now and early December, and so I'm gonna get them all done. I'm not worried about the timing, but I am worried about when am I gonna knit things for myself with the 3 sample knits, and so I'm not gonna sign up for anything else. But new collections are coming out, getting towards the end of the year. A lot of yarn dyers just, have stuff going on right now, and I love all the dyers I'm knitting for. So I'm doing Salty Blonde Fibers, sample knit, a sample knit for Poppy and Spruce Fibers, and then a sample knit for Little Fiber Co. And I love all of them so much. So it's like, of course, I want a sample knit for you. So sign up for those. So that's fun. And it does mean that my personal knitting takes a little bit of a back burner, but I get to work with fun dyers. So it's worth it in the end. And then the more community, less content piece, I feel really connected on the knitting online community right now. Doing this test knitting, releasing my own test knit has felt really connecting. Just trying to share things more, save inspiration more, commenting on more posts. I actually had a really long, I think we met for 3 hours the other night with Ash from Smash Knits. So her and I, were able to actually get on a phone call and knit together and just talk about our lives. And so I'm feeling really connected to the knitting community online, and really grateful to be here, trying to reach out to you all more who are watching me, as kind of a creator trying to reach out, but also, as also a consumer in this knitting community space, feel more connected both ways. So that's great. And yeah, I feel like I've been talking forever. I sometimes give recommendations at the end, and I will say I've listened to 2 books this month that I've super enjoyed. Well, kind of 3, but the main 2. First, I listened to the book Bookends and Bone Dusts, which is a prequel to Legends and Lattes, and it's kind of this cozy, mystical, it's a fantasy book, but it's very cozy about this orc, I think she's an orc, that is stuck in this kind of sea town for a month while she's healing from an injury, and she's normally a mercenary, and she's stuck in this town because she's healing and can't do very much. And she makes friends with this woman. I think she's a ratkin that owns a bookstore and helps the ratkin fix up the bookstore, and has this relationship with a baker. And it's very cozy and sweet, but it's all these fantasy animals and fantasy creatures, and it's sweet. I've listened to Legends and Lattes as well, and so it was nice to kind of be back in this world with Viv, that's the main character, and so enjoyed that. And I listened to that while I was knitting the sweater for my mom, so that was nice. I also listened to Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies, which was great. I would recommend that book. It's the narrator's very British, and so it was very British. And kind of the whole story is very prim and proper, but very fun. It's, you know, about this researcher who's researching fairy folk and her partner researcher Bamblebee, and it's very fun. It was very fun. And then I am about to finish the house on the Cerulean Sea, which I know came out a while ago, but I'm listening to it for the first time, and I highly recommend that one as well. I'm really enjoying it and kind of really excited to stop filming so that I can listen to the last 2 chapters of it. But yeah, I am blanking on authors' names off the top of my head, but information about the authors will be down below. But House on the Cerulean Sea is about, it's another fantasy book. I clearly like fantasy, but this guy who works for kind of this government agency that is controlling magical children, and so is responsible for, he's a caseworker and responsible for overlooking these orphanages that house magical children and making sure that they're kind of up to code, treating these children right, and all this. And so he has this assignment where he has to go to this orphanage that is on an island for a month, and it's about the relationships he forms with the children and the master of the house, and how it kind of changes his opinion on his job and his life. And so it's a really good book. Hopefully, you know, I don't finish the last 2 chapters and be like, well, that sucks, and, you know, whatever. You know, sometimes the ending can ruin a whole book for you, but I think that a lot of people really love it, and so far I've really enjoyed it. So yeah, 3 books that I've been listening to so that I can knit more and just, you know, enjoy listening to at work as well. But yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up here. It's been fun chatting. It's been a really fun month in my knitting, and I'm excited to talk to you again soon. I'll be back next week, probably with a pattern roundup, but I haven't really decided yet, so let me know if you have something that you're burning to see in the middle of October. But I'm gonna wrap it up, and I hope to hear down below what you're making, how you're feeling. Let me know what you thought of any of my projects or acquisitions, and yeah, thanks for being here, and I'll see you again soon. Okay, bye.